hello to everyone associated with the Southwark Festival of Words. My name's Kristen Fredrickson, and I was asked by the Southwark Festival of Words to contribute a talk and a cooking demonstration about food writing, specifically for me about the writing I've done cooking on both sides of the Atlantic, since you can tell I'm American. For the past many years, the top-selling non-fiction books in the UK have been cookbooks. Just this past year, that category was supplanted by memoir and autobiography. Food writing often spans these two categories, and my writing certainly does. I'm the author of a cookbook, Tonight at 7:30, One Family's Life at the Table, illustrated with photographs taken by my daughter. The book is a compilation of our family's top 100 or so recipes from my cooking life. The cookbook came out, unbelievably, 5 years ago, and this introduction was written probably 7 years ago when my now 23-year-old daughter Avery was 16 in high school. I had been taking pictures for my blog, Kristen in London, and Avery was very interested in photography and felt she could take much better pictures, so she began working with me. I would call up to her in her bedroom at the top of our house when dinner was ready, promptly at 7:30, and she'd come down to take photos, which we'd then edit and choose for the book. We immediately decided to write a cookbook and have her illustrate it with her photographs. She went to photography school one summer in Brooklyn, and we spent about 2 years working on the project, which was then funded by a Kickstarter campaign. We're now working on volume 2, and with this lockdown, she's at home to take pictures whenever we're ready with a new dish. The premise of this book, the first book, was a celebration of real food eaten by a real family whose life was split between London and Connecticut. We moved to London in 2005, but kept our little farmhouse outside New York City to have an American place to return to in the summers. It's been a long time since we organized our lives that way, the school year in London and then the summers in Connecticut, but that's the tone of the book back when it was our pattern. Today, I'll read a bit from the introduction to the cookbook, and then I will concoct a very American, Spanish-American cold soup called gazpacho, which sums up American summer cooking since there's no cooking involved. Reading this introduction now, when we're all under lockdown and so many of us are struggling with lost jobs, impossible food shopping conditions, and at the best of times, limited ingredients, the flexibility of shopping for food and being able to find absolutely any ingredient I wanted, it all sounds incredibly outdated, as do the accounts of gatherings of precious people to share my food. I'm incredibly conscious of the luxuries described in this book. Before we worried about drifting around shops and supermarkets, mulling over what to cook, and being able to decide on any given day what to put on the table. All of us in the food world are taking many steps back, looking back with appreciation and nostalgia for our more spontaneous days. As we're all doing these days, we're looking into our cupboards, pantries, spice drawers, and freezers to find ingredients we forgot we had and putting them to good use. We're all much more conscious of stopping food waste and using what we have on hand. Someday perhaps we'll be back where we were, but I'm hopeful we'll never be the same. We'll all have learned necessary lessons about appreciating what we have and the luxury of feeding people gathered close around us. This recipe that I'll demonstrate for you today after my reading is the perfect example of wise and frugal cooking. It's easy to have almost everything in this recipe on hand, and if you can organize a cucumber for this soup, good for you. I couldn't, so we've got a nice courgette to stand in its place. We're all becoming much more creative and flexible, which can only be a good thing. And now for part of the introduction to my book, Tonight at 7:30. I sincerely hope you enjoy it and that it inspires you to cook and to write about what you cook. Since I was a little girl with a mother who hated to cook, I've approached food as a way to express myself. My daily life, whether as an art history professor, a gallery owner, mother of a small child, could offer up unsolvable problems one after another. We all know what this feels like. It has always been an enormous comfort to me to come home at the end of the day, gather up a collection of ingredients, and get on with the one totally satisfying challenge of the day, producing a wonderful meal to offer to my family and friends. My cooking life spans 2 worlds, did in those days, dictated by season. In the hectic, damp, gray months of the school year, we live in London because our daughter Avery, photographer for this cookbook, goes to school here. In the hot, sultry summers, we decamp to an idyllic spot, a dilapidated, sun and humidity-drenched house called Redgate Farm in Connecticut. I cook very differently in these 2 places, a bit schizophrenically perhaps, but the contrast works for us and gives us something to look forward to, no matter where we are. In London, I cook comfort food, partly because we're all in need of comfort as we battle through our various challenges, School exams, property development, my volunteer work. Life is hectic, and the weather is often a bit unconsoling, and so long-cooked, creamy, warm food is the order of the day. We often feed other hungry people in need of comfort and sustenance, and I've developed flexible recipes that appeal to lots of different sorts of eaters, almost always presented in a serve-yourself way that puts everyone at ease. At Redgate Farm, I cook much quicker, more seasonal fare, tending toward big salads, seafood, grilled delights, and of course corn, on the cob most popularly, but also turning up in bean salads, chowders, and casseroles. Meals are taken messily at the old picnic table on the terrace, which is sunny at lunch and shady at dinner. I love occasions for which I'm allowed to pull out all the stops and cook with abandon. I love a celebration supper after the first brilliant night of the school musical, my own birthday dinner with a table full of girlfriends, a luncheon party for my fellow church bell ringers, an expat Thanksgiving in London with the board groaning, or a snowy New Year's Eve with neighbors in Connecticut. But truth be told, my favorite occasion is dinner at home with my family promptly at 7:30 every night we can manage it. There may be extra people to feed, overnight guests tired out from a day of tourism in London, hungry school friends, or neighbors willing to try an experimental dish or two. The book is organized by types of dishes: soups, main courses, side dishes, salads, party foods, desserts. I believe that the best way to cook, if you have the flexibility, is to cook what sounds good on any particular day. Dinner can be fried haddock with triple-cooked French fries, or roasted salmon with Penzeys Fox Point seasoning, or with a spicy sweet teriyaki sauce. Has it been a while since we had a pasta night? Which would be every night if it were up to our daughter. Well then, hearty bolognese or creamy carbonara are perfect candidates. Or if we're feeling like we need a light night, farfalle with roasted peppers or broccoli and pine nuts. Is it a perfectly beastly rainy London day? Then surely soup is the answer. Smooth portobello mushroom with Madeira, elegant celeriac with champagne, or if someone has a delicate stomach, tom yum chicken meatball soup with medicinal herbs. When the weather at Redgate Farm is gloriously sunny and we can't bear to go indoors, of course the grill is indicated. And then we must choose between pork tenderloin grilled with homemade barbecue sauce, chicken burgers with Boursin cheese, or little round zucchinis or mushroom caps stuffed with everything under the sun. Sometimes, though, in Connecticut, nothing will do but luxurious shellfish. Scallops pan-fried and tossed with crisp breadcrumbs and parsley, or steamed lobster dipped in garlicky mayo, its leftover claw turned into a perfect lobster roll. There's nothing more wonderful than a crab cake, studded with red pepper and spring onion. And what about dinner party food? I never fuss and I never fret. I love having people who come prepared to have a good time, and I like to serve them food that everybody likes. Great ideas for this are a many vegetable stir fry with the ever popular home fried rice, laden with more vegetables and scrambled egg. Or my all-time favorite dish, chicken meatballs in a golden pink paprika and sour cream sauce. 5 cheese lasagna is always welcome. Although it's easy to find a ready-made dish of lasagna at the supermarket, those cater to the lowest common denominator of flavor, and it's all the more delicious to discover a homemade, perfect version of a classic dish made with the best ingredients and with love. Hi, everybody. So here we are, ready to make this gazpacho in my cookbook tonight at 7:30. It's an unusual kind of gazpacho. You probably think of it as being chunky, kind of like a salsa, that you might have tortilla chips on the side or something like that. But I was taught to make this version by my wonderful friend Jean in New Jersey. And I don't know where she got the recipe. By the time she made it for me, it was just like, it's Jean's gazpacho, I don't know. So the thing that makes it unusual is it's blended. So you get a nice, creamy, easy to eat soup that honestly I can tell you I would eat it with a straw if I could. It's just that good. So lovely photograph by my daughter Avery of the farm stand in Connecticut where we would put fresh tomatoes in this if it were in season, but it isn't, so we've got a tin of tomatoes, which is fine. It's no problem. So let me tell you how to do this, and I am not a measurer by any stretch of the imagination, which is what makes me a terrible baker, but I just do what I know looks right and what I know will taste right. But in the book, as a normal recipe, there are measurements for everything, and they're a good guideline. But obviously, if you like more cloves, put more cloves in. If you don't like it to be quite so tomatoey, put in fewer tomatoes. So it's just a guideline for the general flavor impact that you're going to have with this recipe. So first off is a quantity of slivered almonds or pine nuts, and I don't have any almonds because it's lockdown, which would be cheaper than the pine nuts, but pine nuts is all I have. So I'm going to put in my pine nuts, which gives it a nice crunchy sort of flavor. The second thing that I don't do in lockdown is spend any bread on anything that isn't bread, because it's so hard to get flour and to make bread. So I've got bread crumbs, crunchy panko breadcrumbs that are easy to get. So we'll shake in some of those. Also gives a little bit of crunch. And here comes the tomatoes. I'm not going to use this whole tin. I'm not a huge tomato gazpacho fan, so I'll use about 2/3 of it and use these for something else. Next on the list, Next on the list is the next substitution. Should I start over? Well, sorry for the little gap there in the filming. I've never done this before. And I whacked the handle of my spoon and pine nuts went everywhere. So that's not very entertaining video cooking. So we're back with the second half of the recipe, and this should be a cucumber. Pretend this is a cucumber, that's the recipe. Nobody's ever put a courgette in gazpacho before, but it's lockdown. I don't have a cucumber, but I have a courgette. It's kind of the same thing, right? A 4-year-old couldn't tell you the difference between this and a cucumber. So I say let's just go for it. So it's since it's all going to be blitzed up, you don't have to really chop it. Just cut it roughly so that it mixes in the food processor. I could probably eat that top. I don't know why I don't. I don't know. Somebody have an explanation for that. So in goes the cucumber, courgette, which of course in America we call zucchini. So there's a good, here's a little educational thing. Most food words in English that are not English in origin are French in origin, where Americans go to Mexico for their inspiration. So you've got a French courgette, that's a Mexican zucchini. So there you go. Now you can speak both languages. So next is a little bit of cider vinegar, and I don't have cider vinegar, but I have Japanese brown rice vinegar. That's virtually the same flavor. I know it's very fashionable right now to be drinking cider vinegar. I didn't like it, so I don't have any. So just a little bit to give it a little bit of kick. I'd say a 1/4 cup or so. You don't want the sweetness of the tomatoes to overwhelm everything. Next are your spices, and this is purely personal. I love cumin, so I'm going to use quite a lot of cumin. Oh, I just opened this bag. It's so fresh. It makes such a difference. Whenever you clean out your spice cupboard, really kind of do go by the best by dates if it's something really, really pungent, because they lose their kick. So in my recipe in this book, I do not include chili powder, but we've come to really like this soup with a kick, with a spice. So I'm going to add a little bit, not a lot. I don't want to scare anybody. All right, those two, which then I close with a little clip. This is controversial. Cloves in a soup, really? But it's delicious. And when you smell it all together, you can see how the flavor profile works. So that's your spicing. Salt and pepper to taste, which I'm not going to do right now. I'm just going to sprinkle it in because I know how much I like. The one variable here is this stock, which is vegetable stock. And the reason it's in a bowl is because it's homemade. Normally, I would just whip open a tin or a Tetra Pak of ready-made chicken broth, or use a stock cube. Well, I'm conserving all those things now because we don't know when we can get more. But the other day, I cooked vegetable stock, and then there's absolutely no reason not to reuse it. What did I poach it in? I was poaching something in vegetable stock, and at the end of it, I poured it off and thought, well, I'll save that for something. So that something is now my gazpacho. The unknown, and in fact, I'll just taste it. The unknown so far is how salty it is, because commercial stock is predictably quite salty, and you wouldn't need salt in your soup. God, that stock is so good. Why do I buy stock? So we'll pour in about 2 cups. Oh my God, that's so good. I'm ashamed that I buy stock, actually, because what went into this could have gone into our rubbish bin. But no, I'm not throwing anything away. So we'll start off with that amount, and when we blitz it up, see if it's the right consistency. Then I say in my recipe half and half, which is an American invention that's half cream and half whole milk. No, no, no. We need help. We've got double cream, baby. Double cream. Not a lot, just a little splash to make it pink. Okay, now this is a little bit of an experiment, and we're going to stop the filming, and I'll walk over and put this onto the machine and just hope for the best that it doesn't go crazy, and then we'll blitz it up together. Okay, we're back. No disasters. It worked. I got the little bowl onto the machine with no problem. I am so hard on this food processor. That's just how you do that. Okay, now, this is magical. Wait till you see how this works. And you just blitz it until you don't see any more little pieces of courgette. You can kind of still see, unless you like it chunky, and then don't. Just stop it whenever you like it. I like it super creamy and smooth. Okay. Also not compelling television or video recipe writing, listening to a food processor work, but that's okay. All right, so here we go. Just wait till you see how pretty this is. I'll try to angle it so you can see. No, I'm gonna have to pour. I can't fit my ladle. Just look. Oh, there's a piece of courgette right there. So I could have blitzed it longer if it weren't so boring for you, but that's okay. We got there in the end. And there you have it. That is creamy pink gazpacho with a courgette instead of a cucumber. We don't know. I think it's gonna be delicious. Should I give it a try? I will give it a try. Oh my God, it's so good. The cloves and the cumin give it a real, just spicy luxury. The courgette is totally a cucumber, guys. You could not tell the difference. It's great. It's even nicer, I think, because it's not as watery. The cucumber has a little bit more substance, a little bit more body. The pine nuts are perfectly good almonds. That is a fantastic soup. And the only thing you had to buy was your zucchini, your courgette umber. I don't know. It's great. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this, both the reading and the cooking, and that you're inspired to do some cooking and some writing.